Well, today I want to, oh, there we go. Today I want to share with you something that's been on my heart lately, something I've been doing a lot of self-examination with. How many of you know why we're here on the planet? Ever thought about that? Why are we here? God brought us here to make a difference with our lives. We're here to know God, but we're here to make a difference with our lives. We're really here for just one reason, to impact people. We're here to permeate the darkness with the light of God's love. That's why we're all here. And most of us are going to remain discontent in our life if we're not impacting people in some way. In one way or another, if we're not impacting people, we'll never be satisfied. We'll never be happy, because that's why we're here. So I'm going to talk to you about how to live a life of impact, and we've got 7 things that will help you to make a difference in the lives of other people. This is what we should frame our whole life around, is these concepts of how, life goes by really fast, and at the end of it we wonder, like, well, what was it all about? What did I do, or what did I accomplish? And the only thing that's important is what we did that made a difference in the lives of other people. That'll be the only thing that's worth anything, at least as far as I've seen. What is impact? The dictionary, the New Oxford American Dictionary, defines impact as the effect or influence of one person, thing, or action on another. In essence, impact is making a difference in the lives of others. Number one, the first most important thing to make a difference is that you've got to love God. All impact will flow out of this heart of love. If you don't have the love of God in your heart, if you don't have a love for God or for people, you'll never impact anybody in a positive way. So Matthew 22:36, Jesus is asked which of the commandments is the greatest. His reply follows in verses 37 through 40. And he says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus also said in John 13:35, "All men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." And he also said in John 14:21, "Whoever has my commands and obeys them, he is the one who loves me. He who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love him and show myself to him." So he said the most important commandment is for us to love God, and then just like it, to love people. So we can't really impact people if we're not walking around with any love in our heart. There's no way to impact anybody. I mean, you'll impact them, but it won't be in the way that God wanted you to. So we have to frame our whole life around this concept that's very hard for us, which is to love people. Sometimes it's easy to love God. It's just not so easy to love his children. How many of you feel that way at times? Right? It really is. Oh, I love God, but I don't want anything to do with his people. Well, that's the second commandment, is to love God, love your neighbor as yourself, and that's not very easy to do. How many of you have had neighbors that you've liked? 2 people. Yeah, I'm right up there with you. All right, but this is hard. I love this quote. It says, "Love is always creative, and fear is always destructive. If you could only love enough, you could be the most powerful person in the world." So it all stems from love. Number 2, the second most important thing to do to have some kind of impact is to take inventory of yourself. How many of you ever sit and give thought to your life and write out things and just take an account of your life? Like, what am I doing? What is going on? And so to take inventory is to really look deep inside and go, what am I doing? And I always ask myself several questions. I like what Socrates said, the Greek philosopher. He said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Many people just live from day to day, but they never really examine anything in their life. They never give much thought to anything they do. They don't take an inventory of, anything. And so here's some important questions. There's 5 questions that I ask myself. Consider yourself asking yourself these same questions. Number 1, what kind of impact am I having on others? Be honest with yourself. What kind of impact are you having on others? Because you're having some kind of impact. The question is whether it's good or bad. Number 2, am I seizing every opportunity I'm given to make a positive impact on others? God gives us opportunities every single day to impact people? Are we taking advantage of those opportunities to impact people? Number 3, am I willing to make a difference by investing my heart into one person at a time? One person at a time. Some of us want to impact large numbers, but we don't want to impact one single person. You'll never impact large numbers if you're not going to impact one person's life. And then think about, what are some specific ways I can impact the lives of others? Another important question is to ask, what worthwhile causes resonate in my heart and stir my passions? Each of us are called to different things. Each of us have a passion for different things. So ask yourself, what causes, what passions stir in my heart when you hear about a particular work that somebody's doing? You know, which one lights up in your heart, because that's the one you're to get behind. And you know, you don't have to be a missionary to impact the world. You don't have to quit your job and go work in the inner city. You don't have to, be a rebel in a foreign country. All you have to do is just let God use you right where you're at. A lot of people think they got to do something, go off to Africa to make a difference when there's people all around the San Fernando Valley that could use your help. And I think that we feel better about ourselves if we go to some foreign land. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we get this thing in our mind, at least Americans do. If we go somewhere else, then we're doing something really noble. But who gives a crud about the people right next to us? They're not important. They live right here, so that's not going to make me look as good. But if I go off to wherever, then I'm going to look like I've done something more incredible. People are all around us. People could use what you have. All you have to do to make a difference is allow God to use your gifts and talents, your experiences, your background, your race, and your history. We all come from a specific race, a type of people. We all have a particular background. We all live in a certain area, and we all have particular gifts and talents. All God wants to do is use the particular, your life. He's not going to use anybody else's life. We all have experiences that other people can benefit from, good and bad. That's how you allow God to use you, is by just taking you for exactly what you have and where you've come from and who you are, and use you the way you are. He can't use you as anybody else because you're yourself. Number 3, the third thing you can do to impact people is to just serve people and to think small. The cultural consciousness of today encourages us to think big. And in most cases, I'm all for it. But sometimes we miss out on huge opportunities by not thinking small. We always think everything has to be big, huge, and grandiose. And really, let's think of it this way. Life is really mostly momentary encounters with other people that happen from day to day. How many times is there something big, huge, and incredible that happens in our life that it's only a few little events throughout our life that are that big? Everything else is just daily living. Just these small daily encounters with people that change our life, either for the good or the bad. So life is really comprised of a finite amount of moments of just these little encounters with people that shape our life. Our life's been shaped by all the encounters we've had with people. It's made us who we are, from our parents to the people who reared us, or the people we grew up with, or experiences that we had. That's what life is, these small. So remember, it's really the small things in life that make the big difference, and it's the small things that we overlook because we see them as not important. In my own life, many of you know me, many of you don't know me, but I'm a musician, and I travel around the world. And I try to think about different ways I could use my influence to impact people. There are drummers around the world who know who I am because I've been doing this for 30 years in the public eye. And so I think about, okay, when I go to the airport, sometimes there'll be young musicians that will recognize me, and I always try to think, okay, I got 30 seconds with this person, or I've got a minute with this person. What could I do to have their encounter with me be a memorable one? So I always travel with extra pairs of drumsticks. I have these signature drumsticks with my name on it. I travel with them because if I meet somebody who recognizes me, I want to give them a pair of sticks. It's a small thing. It's a 30-second encounter, but it has the ability to change someone's life, those little encounters. And I remember when I was young, I was 17, and there was a favorite band that I liked, and I went to go see them, and I went to their sound check, and I asked the drummer if I could get on his drums and play so they could hear me play, and I wanted them to critique my playing. And so I played. They let me play for 30 seconds, and then the bass player, he said, "Oh man, you're going to be one of them superstar drummers." It was just like one sentence that he spoke to me, but I never forgot it. It was a little encounter, But he has no idea that that little encounter changed my life. So it's these very small little moments in life that really change and shape our life. So you have to try not to let those moments slip out of your fingertips where you're able to impact somebody's life in a great way. And sometimes it's by the smallest act of kindness and the smallest word you say and the smallest little deed that you do. And that's where I say, think small, because everyone's always thinking big, big ministries, big platform, big whatever, big movie stars, big everything, instead of, hey, are you faithful to the little tiny things that God has put in your path every single day? So serve people. Okay, I like what Oswald Chambers said. He said, it is inbred in us that we have to do exceptional things for God, but we have not. We have to be exceptional in the ordinary things. And William Ward said, there are 3 keys to more abundant living: caring about others, daring for others, and sharing with others. And St. Francis of Assisi said, I love this quote, start by doing what's necessary, then what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. It's just taking that little thing, just do what's necessary. Some of the greatest ministries in the world and the greatest impactful people in the world, people who just did what they saw was obvious and necessary, and it built on that. Number 4, find your love language. All of us are wired with different gifts and a different expression of love. Romans 12, 6 through 8, this is the New King James Version. It says this, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us, let us use them. If prophecy, let us prophesy in proportion to our faith. Or ministry, let us use it in our ministering. He who teaches, in teaching. He who exhorts, in exhortation. He who gives, with liberality. He who leads, with diligence. He who shows mercy, with cheerfulness. So the bottom line is we all have gifts and talents, and I think people in today's world, we only think of like the talent part. We just think, well, I hear people say that all the time, well, I don't have any talents. I'm not gifted, I'm just a regular person. I'm like, you are totally rejecting the things that God gave you. And there's this whole absurd notion that if the ability that we have doesn't bring wealth, fame, or fortune, then it's not worth pursuing. When there are many, like all those things that they just talked about in Romans, there are many gifts that God gives to men. He gives everybody something to operate with, every single person. The question is whether we decide to recognize it, whether we decide to do something with it, do something about it. But he certainly on Judgment Day will ask you what you did with those gifts that he gave you. And some of those gifts, again, they're not going to bring fame and fortune, but who cares? At the end of our life, none of that stuff will matter anyway. It's all going to go up in smoke. The only thing that's going to matter is, did I serve people with these abilities? My children have different gifts, and your children have different gifts, and you begin to recognize them. And I don't particularly have the strong gift of compassion, but other people do, and they just have that super compassionate heart. My gift is that of an encourager, a teacher, a rallier. So I recognized that a long time ago, and I didn't worry about all the things that I can't do well, because that's everything else in the world. Ask my wife. She'll tell you there's only a few things that I do really well, and I work on just developing those, and I can't worry about the 1,000 other things that I'm not good at. Because I'm not responsible. I'm responsible for the things that God gifted me with, and to do something with those, because that's a treasure that I have that maybe the other person doesn't have. Or if they do, they're going to have it in a different way. Because many of us have similar gifts. There are those that are caring and giving, they have that compassionate heart. Those that are teachers, they're the people that teach in schools all around the world. They all have a similar teaching gift. But each one's going to do it in their own unique way. Each one's going to find their own secret melody with God and how to express it in a way. You've all been in school. How about when you've had teachers? And there's certain ones you would connect with. And there's certain ones you remember all of your life, even when you got older. You remember, I remember my 3rd grade teacher, man. She just had this thing about her. And she had a way that she connected with you that the other teachers didn't. And for other people, it was other teachers that connected with them. So even though many of us might have the same gifts, it's not a competition. It's just the whole joy of life is to express whatever that way of our gifting is in our own unique way, which is going to encompass all of those things, our background, our experiences, who we grew up with, what formulated us to be us is what makes us uniquely different. So we have to take that scripture in Romans very seriously and just do the best with what we have. You know, the problem with Christianity today is that we don't see enough real living examples of it. When people, if the world were to see real Christianity walked out, it touches people. It changes people, and they really have nothing bad to say when they see you really doing the stuff. Their problem is when they just see hypocrisy. Like, I feel weird being up here, you know, looking down on everyone, but that's the problem with Christianity today, is we look down on everyone. And when you're looking down on everyone, how is that love? How is that the grace of God? As people are, you know, so many Christians today are just so judgmental and look down on the rest of the people that aren't believers, and we're supposed to be feeling mercy for them. We're supposed to be feeling what we hope Jesus to feel for us, because you start thinking about your sin, you better hope that God doesn't look at you the way we look at other people, because none of us could stand. So we need to realize that we're the light of the world. We're to lift people up and have mercy on them, and to not, you know, God's job is to judge them. Our job is just to love them and bring them to the light of God. And it's like that quote says, if we could only love enough, we'd be the most powerful people in the world. People would hover around you if they felt love, because all people need it, all people want it. And when they feel somebody really emanating with it, they don't really care what you believe. They just know you got something that they want. And that love is a powerful thing, but unfortunately the world breathes the negative and breeds fear into us rather than love. And that when the love comes, then we're not so fearful for things anymore. We don't really care. I think when we're loving God perfectly, we don't really care what other people think about us anymore. And when you come to that place, you're really free, and then you can really start expressing His love to other people. And when you refresh other people, it says here in Proverbs 11:25, it says, "A generous man will prosper. He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed." How many of you have experienced that? When when you've helped other people, don't you find that at some point when you're really down and out, that God sort of refreshes you? I mean, it's been that way for me. There's many times in my life when I've been up and many times when I've been down. And I can say that He's definitely refreshed me in the times that I've been down, but I have spent a part of my life trying to refresh other people. Not that any of that makes me perfect, but I have tried. I have made effort to refresh or to inspire or to uplift people. And then the times when I'm down, and God will just send some mysterious person with a kind word or just a sentence, and they don't even know what they're saying, how incredibly it's impacting me. Because what nobody knows when we're walking around the earth is what's going on in our heart or what we're struggling with. Nobody knows that but us. But then, God will plant somebody and they'll say something, and it'll totally resonate with you. And it'll just be enough of a turning point for that day to all of a sudden get you out of that slump, and you're able to start again the next day. Because God will send other people to refresh you if you refresh His people. I like this quote. It says, "It's always more noble to give yourself completely to one individual than to labor diligently for the salvation of masses." Just to, Jesus always left the crowds to go after the one person, right? So, but I think that we in this culture that we live in, I think we play this numbers game, and we don't allow ourselves to feel good about anything if the numbers aren't big enough, because everything is a competition, including churches. I mean, my father-in-law, Will, told me once about a conference that he went to, it just came to my mind, where people were organized at this church conference, and they had badges on, and it was based on the size of their church. So if you had like 300 or 500 people or less, and you wore a badge that showed that, and then if you had 5,000 or 10,000, and they all sat them according to the size of their church. And I thought, that is what's wrong with the church. Instead of like the person with only 300 people sitting with the person who's got 1,000 people just to mingle, it's like we put people in little categories like, oh, well. And then, of course, we're all judgmental, so when we walk by and we see a yellow badge and it's only 500 people, then we don't bother to give them any attention. Oh, I'm not going to get anything out of that person. Let me go to the people who have the big church. I want to be around them. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way with God. God will judge us based on the one individual He sent to you to make a difference in. It won't be, nobody's going to be wearing badges about the size of your church because God doesn't care. Because if you weren't faithful to the call of what he gave you, the 10 people that he gave you personally to mentor, but you couldn't be bothered because you're in the green room and you can't come out and talk to the people after the service because you're busy being a Christian rock star, then to me, how's that representing Christ? How's that representing God? I mean, God, so it's more noble to find one person who you've really put your life into and poured into and make a difference, because the numbers game doesn't mean anything to God, because he knows our heart. He knows if all you were trying to do was build a big congregation to look big. But if you didn't really care about people individually, then how good are we? So we have to think about individuals. I like what Jackie Robinson said. He said, a life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. He recognized that. A life is not important. It doesn't matter if you're the world's greatest baseball player, the world's greatest football player, or actor, or whatever. If you're not impacting other people's lives positively, then it's a waste. It's a waste of that life. And I like what John Wesley, the British theologian and author, said. This is all we need to do is have this like on our phone, in our car, everywhere we go. We just need to have this little quote, and I think we would be different every day. It's pretty simple. It says, do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you ever can. I mean, God, that's it. If we just live by that simple motto, we would be impacting people everywhere, every single day. It's as simple as, like, when you go to the grocery store. We were at a car rental place the other day, my father-in-law and I, and it was a small little place. But the guy really went out of his way to try to make sure everything was right. He was real accommodating. And when we were done with the deal, I said, man, you're really great. I said, you are awesome at what you do. I said, you're like a tremendous blessing. I mean, this guy like really lit up, because we all need to hear that in our life. For whatever we do, we all need to get that pat on the back. And it's as simple as just, when you're at McDonald's, just thanking somebody or just making them feel special or making them feel like what they did mattered, because everything matters. We need everybody in the world, whatever job they're doing, serve some function that helps us in some way. But it's just those little things. I mean, it's not some big major thing. It's a 30-second thing, but I saw that he really got excited. Now, that's my gift, the gift of encouragement. But everybody can encourage. We have many abilities that we don't even tap into, and that's kind of sad. Even Bono, the rock star, the lead singer from U2, who I met once back in the 80s, he was a nice guy. He's a Christian. He says, when you align yourself with God's purpose as described in the Scriptures, something special happens to your life. He's a mega huge rock star, mega millionaire, but he spends a lot of his life behind worthy causes, trying to use his platform to make a difference. A lot of people, the higher up you go, more people will mock you, and more people will say, but he spends an enormous amount of time that he could be just sipping on a pina colada in the south of France. He spends an enormous amount of time going to conferences to try to help impact the world in some kind of positive way. And how can you knock that? Because most people aren't even using the small platform they have to do anything. So we can all make that difference. Number 5, encourage people. One of the most powerful things we have is our words. Proverbs 18:21 reminds us that the power of life and death are in the tongue, which is to say that the words we speak release either blessing or curse. In James 3, verse 4, the tongue is compared to the rudder of a ship, in that it is quite small, but yet it is responsible for the direction of the vessel. I'm sure everybody here has heard of Pablo Picasso, right? The artist, the Spanish artist. Listen to what encouraging words did for him. This is what his mother said to him. He said, my mother said to me, if you become a soldier, you will become a general. If you become a monk, you'll end up as the Pope. Instead, I became a painter and wound up Picasso. I like that. How many of you have children? How many of you are children? Every hand should go up. We're all children of somebody. We might not know who our parents are, but we're children of somebody. The words that you speak in your own home and in life, that is the most powerful weapon you have. Literally, the words that you speak change and form lives. And that's why there's so many testimonies about people who said, and I know if you're like me and you give your kids encouraging words, after a while they get annoyed with you. And I remember my mother always encouraging me, and sometimes I'm like, but later in life, those words are what resonated in me and what allowed me to believe in myself once I passed that adolescent stage, and once I could see the depth and the appreciation of that. Words are the most powerful thing we have to shape those that we love and to shape those that we don't know. It's the things we tell people that change destinies. And that's why the Bible says that the tongue is like the rudder of a ship. It's this small thing, but it determines the course. And you either speaking words of life to people, or you're speaking words of cursing to them, words of death. And I like what the author Rudyard Kipling said. He was the author of The Jungle Book. He was an English author and poet. It's one of my favorite quotes. It says, "Words are the most powerful drug used by mankind." Think about it. Everything we've ever done in this life, it's been formed by words. Every good thing that mankind has done has been formed by the powerful speakers who convinced people to do something good, and every evil act has been from words that heinous men were able to convince people through the power of words. Everything good and bad is done through the words and through the thought processes that lead us to say whatever we're saying. So this is a huge way that we all have the ability to impact people, is just by think of it like, when God speaks to us, even his words of discipline for us are still words of love. How many of you have had to discipline your children? Okay, I'll ask you one hand. Okay. Do we discipline them because we hate them? No. You discipline them out of love. So every word that God ever speaks to us is always coming from a heart of love, even the corrective words. So God is always encouraging. I think one of the reasons why people come to church is for what? To be encouraged, don't we? We don't come here to get discouraged. We can go outside of there and get that 7 days a week, right? But here's the important thing about all of that. I'm starting to realize the whole way that we succeed in this life, to succeed at being a good Christian, is to just change the way we think. Because the circumstances themselves don't always change. Like something in our life happens to us that's negative, it happened. It is bad. We can't change it. But all we can do is change how we think about it. Like, do we play the victim for the rest of our life, or do we just go, well, that's life, but God can use that somewhere down the road to make a difference. So everything that we're going to accomplish is going to be accomplished in here first. And a lot of that comes from what we say. And what we meditate on in our heart and our brain and our mind eventually comes out in our words. So meditate on being a positive person, because God's always speaking positive words of life to us. Even though we deserve more scolding, His grace is constantly coming to us. So encouraging people is probably one of the most powerful things you can do, no matter where you're at, on a daily basis. And that was number 5. Okay. Number 6, let God use your points of pain. What are the greatest pains in your life? What are the greatest tragedies? What is the greatest sadness you've ever experienced? For me, one of the things that I experienced in my life early on, and it's something that I still deal with, it was rejection. Okay, and some of you never dealt with that, but you had other things. Some people in here may have been molested. Some people in here may have been belittled all of their life by those who were supposed to love them. We've all dealt with some kind of thing that hurt us. It's just human life and human nature that we've experienced these things. But rather than for the rest of our lives letting that be a crutch for us not to accomplish God's will for our life, let God use that. And it says here in Genesis 50, 20, it says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." We know of all those scriptures, what the devil meant for bad, God turned into good. So we all have these incredible points of pain in our life. If you live long enough, we've gone through stuff. Even young kids, at school, things that people putting you down, people not accepting you. These are all things, but if we let God use that and turn it around, then those become our strengths. There's an organization, a Christian organization, it's called Compassion International, and they are a child relief agency that they serve over, I think, 100 nations, and they basically feed and clothe the poor people in all these third world nations and teach them the gospel. And they do incredible, incredible work, and there's many organizations like that around the world that are doing this type of work. But they've been around for a long time. I know the president and the CEO of that, he actually stepped down, but he was the CEO for many years. His name is Wes Stafford. He's written several books, and he loves children, and he's a child advocate. And he studied that in college, and he was in the military, and he's had this incredible, impactful life, raising the awareness and being a fighter for children. But only recently I come to find out and learn that he grew up as his parents were missionaries in the Ivory Coast in Africa. And as they traveled, they always had to, in those countries, a lot of the missionary kids went to these like boarding schools for 6 to 9 months out of the year while their parents traveled around in those different places. And he shared with Christianity Today magazine, he said that, when I was 10 years old, he goes, I was abused physically, mentally, and sexually by the people who were entrusted to take care of him, the caretakers of the missionaries' children. How wonderful. You're doing this wonderful work of God, sacrificing your life, and you put your children in the care of these people, and these people are molesting your children and abusing them mentally and physically, and you go, this is horrible. This is wrong. These are the last people it should happen to. But stuff happens. But he said, out of the darkest tragedies of my life came the burning passion of my life. Because after I experienced those things, he said, I knew that I was going to make a difference and be an advocate and fight for those who can't fight for themselves, which are the children of the world, the poor people of the world, the children who can't speak for themselves. And there's scriptures that talk about that. Speak up for the rights of the needy and the poor and the destitute who cannot speak for themselves. And he made that his life's mantra. There are thousands upon thousands of people who've had experiences like that or negative experiences in other ways, or you always see these people rise up and they become an advocate for a cause, but something that they experience great pain with. People who've lost children then become advocates for that cause. And a lot of them are not even Christians, but they understand the Christian principle that God can use that painful thing in your life as your greatest strength. And we can only live in our own body and our own experiences, and we only know our own life intimately. But in my life, one of the reasons why I became an encourager, a teacher, a rallier, somebody who wanted to inspire people is because I didn't have that growing up. And because of the very rejection that I felt growing up as a child by my father abandoning me, it damaged me in a major way, but then at some point I turned that pain into a fuel that would then be used for something positive, which is the reason why I can get up here today and try to encourage people. It's the only reason that I care. I wouldn't care if I were not rejected. I wouldn't try to encourage young people to be all they can be if my life were perfect and cushy and I never experienced, because I wouldn't have the compassion for it. We have the compassion for the things that hurt us the most. Then we can help other people who are going through those same things in their life. We can go, hey man, people who've been divorced can then tell you the pain of that and help somebody who had just gone through it. But if we don't go through anything, we're really of no use to anybody. Because we've got it's all just like book knowledge of which we've never experienced anything. It has no real power. It only has real power when you say, hey, God says this, and in my life He's done this. This is for real. You walk it through this way, and God will help you through that, and He'll make use of those bad things that you went through to be positive in the lives of so many other people, because we're not in heaven yet. We're in this earth where there's all kinds of pain and suffering, but God gives us, so rather than to look at the world and go, oh, this is all just horrific and horrible, and this is all going to hell in a handbasket, go, you know what, I'm alive. What kind of difference can I make with my life in these dark days? Why has God chosen us to be alive in this decade, in this century, in this generation? Why are we here when all this chaos is going on? So we can make a difference. so we can be a light in a dark place. Because all this stuff is happening, all this stuff is going on, but rather than just sinking, and I see a lot of people, they kind of hide from the world, or they've got this mentality like let's hover around just only Christians, and let's bunker down, and let's stay away from the world. And no, we're supposed to be here to go out there and affect the world, because those are the Christians already know about Christ. They're already saved. It's the rest of the world that needs our help. But if we hide from everybody, and we don't want to get contaminated by talking to anybody or being with the people, then we're not doing anything that Jesus said. He sent us here to be a representative of him. A Christian is a representative of Christ. So how do we represent him if we're hiding from everything, and we're hiding from the pain, and I think the most powerful Christians are the people that can tell you all the bad things that have happened in their life, but yet how God's delivered them and set them free, or not so much that he sets you free in the sense that, look, we're all going to remember everything bad that ever happened to us. But I think what he does is he allows you to, setting you free to me is he allows you to overcome it in spite of that. In spite of it, you're able to go on and be a productive citizen. In spite of all those pains, you're able to make a difference. You're never going to forget anything that ever happened to you that was bad. But if you can allow it to be used by God to make a difference on the planet, then you have overcome, and you have done what he called you to do. You've got the battle scars, you've got all of the stuff, and you've got the the green berets, all the medals, all the honor, because you've went through war. You don't get the Purple Heart for lying around on the couch, watching YouTube. You just don't get it. You get it because you've gone through stuff. And we're going to go through stuff, but I think we're missing great opportunities by not letting God use the painful things in our life to help other people. All right, lastly, step 7 is to think generationally and to think towards the future. We live in a culture today that is extremely self-oriented, probably more so than in the history of the world. It's just everything is about self, and everything is selfishness, and all the reality TV shows, it's all about, look how wonderful I am. Everything is just so decadent and so narcissistic that we don't think for anything past ourselves, but God always thinks generationally. Everything that he's doing, he's thinking of all the people that are coming. So if we started to think that way ourselves, if we started to think about our lives and take inventory and go, what am I doing now, and how can that affect future generations? There's times that I've spent time with young people, maybe young fathers. I've spoken at different fatherhood conferences, and I have a special love for fatherhood because I didn't grow up with one. So becoming one became very important to me and very special to me. And so I'm like a rallier to the cause of fathers, because I realize what a big difference that can make in the lives of people all around the world if fathers just stepped up to the plate and became who they were supposed to become. So I've had conversations with spoken at these conferences where, these people are coming out of really horrible circumstances, and these young men wouldn't even have a clue of what a father looks like. There's been 2 or 3 generations where they never even saw one. So when you impact one young man's life who's a father, it has the potential to impact many, many future generations. You might be thinking, well, I've made a difference in that guy's life. But if you really made a difference in that guy's life, and he starts changing his perspective on how he treats his children and the call of his life, then now you've helped break the curse over him, over his children, and then potentially over his children's children and their children's children. You've affected many generations beyond, but we've been trained to only think of us and only think of now, instead of thinking, well, the conversation I'm having with somebody today could impact people generationally. Because if I cause that one person to move away from a life of crime, well, there's maybe 17 people that he didn't kill because he changed his life and got with God. And then the outcome of all those people's lives change. It's like this matrix. It's like this heavenly woven matrix. So every little thing we do, we ought to be thinking of it in light of future generations and in light of eternity, because it all really does matter. But if we only think of it for the moment, we'll never take a second look at these opportunities. And we'll just go, oh, well, who cares? It's just a conversation with some kid. But again, most of us, aren't we shaped by these little conversations with people? by these little momentary encounters with people. These are the things that shape the direction and change our life. So every opportunity that you have, you can be impacting the future. And that's how God he always spoke to the generations, and he thought generationally, not because he sees all his children as a whole. If we can start to think like that, we'll make different choices every day, because it's really about our future legacy. So at the end of each day, you ought to be thinking about, what did I do to impact people? Did I make a difference today? I know we're bored when we're not making a difference. And it doesn't matter, we can't judge how anybody else is making a difference. Everybody's going to be called to do it in a different way. Some people, it's just going to be, they served, their family for that day, and that's how they made a difference. For some people, it's going to be what they did out in the workplace. It's going to be different for all of us, and it's going to be different every day. But the bottom line is, all we have to consume ourselves with is just, I've made a difference today. When we're not making a difference, and that's the problem with, you see the people in the celebrity world, and when they're only living for themselves, they go from one thing to another, because they're miserable. They're miserable because when you're not making a difference and you're not impacting people in a positive way, God doesn't ever allow you to feel good about your life. And it's an empty life. It's an empty life void of this thing. How many of you, when you've made a difference, you feel good about it? You've had a conversation with somebody and you got off the phone and you helped them through that day. It does make you feel good, because God wired that to be inside of you. We're wired to make people feel better and help them. So anyway, that's my message. The last couple quotes I want to share with you, and then we'll close it up in prayer. And I have no idea whether I'm on time or overtime or whatever, but that's all I have to say, which for me is a minor miracle. So miracles do come true. My wife and I had the pleasure of meeting Denzel Washington in New York some years back, and spent a couple days hanging out with him. And he's very much in, I don't know if you know, but he's like a poster child for the Boys Club, Boys and Girls Club of America, because when he was a little boy, he said the Boys Club made a huge difference in his life. And because they gave him time, and they said they equipped him with the confidence needed to succeed. So now he's a very advocate for that. I grew up in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. I was in that program for 4 years. So it's funny, you become an advocate for the things that impacted you at some point in your life, and later you go, that's a good cause. So just find that thing that stirs your heart. Find that thing that makes you feel alive when you're making a difference, and you'll enjoy life a lot more. His quote said, "At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with all those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back." Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of Britain, said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." And then William Penn, the English minister and journalist, he said, I like this one a lot, "I expect to pass through life but once. If therefore there be any kindness I can show, or any good thing I can do to any fellow being, let me do it now, and not defer or neglect it, as I shall not pass this way again." That was powerful. If there's any good thing I can do, let me do it now, because I'm not coming through this place again. Well, let's just close in prayer, and I'll close out with this last scripture. Most of us in this life are trying to hang on to our life. But Luke 9:24 says, "If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it." Our life is meant to be given up. And if we try to hoard it and hang on to it, we're never going to be satisfied. If we give it away, we'll find it. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this time. I thank you for downloading this message into my heart, into my spirit. I hope that it goes out there and touches people in some way. I thank you for the privilege that you give all of us of being representatives of you and being your hands and your eyes and your arms and your feet to a dying world. Lord, help us to change our mind. Help us to change the way we view things, and not to see things as they are, but to see things as they could be, and as what we could do to make a difference in all of these dark situations that are surrounding our world today. Help us to not feel downtrodden, but to feel uplifted, that we're here to make a difference. Just help us to change the perspective and help us to view everything we do in light of eternity and to realize that we have the goods, we have the skills, we have the experiences, the background, the stories. We have things to impact this world with. We have a life to share with people. At whatever age we are in this room, there are ways in which we can make the difference in other people's lives. Show us how to do that, Lord, and help us to gather up the courage necessary to do it and to make a difference. And help us to think generationally and to think legacy and to think future. Lord, none of us knows how many days on earth we'll be here. We could die young, we could die old. We have no idea. Every day is a gift. Every day is an opportunity to serve you. So I pray that you would just awaken every single heart in here, that every person in here would feel not condemned, but inspired to go, I can be more, I can do more, I have more to give, I have more to offer. Whatever I didn't do in the past, it's over. But today is a new day. And Lord, your mercies are new every day, and your grace is new every morning. And so, Father, I pray that today is a new day, that we begin to change our lives and begin to align ourselves with your purposes and your causes and make a difference so that we can, one day when we get to heaven, so we can hear those great words, well done, good and faithful servant. But more importantly, Lord, not just to hear the words, but that we can have impact in the lives of your children, the people that you love. Lord, help us to love you so that we can love others, Lord, which is sometimes so difficult to do in this life. I pray that just if anything comes out of this message, Lord, I pray that we would walk out with being clothed with the garment of love in a new way, and that we could see it and express it in a new way, that we would just be an expression of your love to a world that's in desperate need of it. And we thank you for your mercy and grace on us, that when we're not loving your people, you're still loving us. And we thank you for this privilege, and I just speak a blessing, and I decree blessing over every person here, that they'll feel the power of God in their life in a new way. And we thank you for this time together. In Jesus' name, amen.